8th edition 40k, the best edition of Warhammer 40k yet, or is it? Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, in today's Wonders of video, I am going to be answering the ultimate question. Is Warhammer 40k 8th edition the best edition of 40k yet? Now, 8th edition has been out for around a year now, and I have the codex for my main army. Now, Games Workshop said this is going to be the edition that we asked for. It's going to be the best edition yet. So I thought I would review that and answer the question, do I think this is the best edition of Warhammer 40k yet? Now, before that, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. Now, when 8th edition was first announced, it was fair to say it was quite a scary but exciting experience. This game of ours was going to change in a big way, and apparently it was going to get simpler to play. We had a core rule set that was going to be free for everyone to play. Now, that did happen, but of course if you wanted to play the game properly, you also needed a big rule book. Then they introduced all of the indexes with all army rules released at once. This was a fantastic way to go, and you have to give credit to Games Workshop for this. Everyone could play this brand new edition from day one with any of their armies. And then in a very short space of time, the codexes were released to go with the 8th edition rulebook. Now, sadly, not everyone has a codex yet. They are still waiting, but a good majority of armies have their codex, and we've seen GW updating the rules along the way, either with FAQs, erratas, or chapter approved. So it's quite clear that Games Workshop are committed to 8th edition to try and make it the best edition they can, keeping on top of the rules, keeping all the armies updated as quickly as possible, and reaching out to the community in several ways, with questionnaires, with Facebook updates, with the Warhammer community website. It's been a long time since Games Workshop did this interaction with us, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. They even have their own YouTube channel where they're doing painting tutorials and updates and releases, etc. So pretty exciting times from that point of view. But how about from the game point of view? Okay, so 8th edition had a brand new simplified rule set. So one would think that you could just read those rules and play. Well, that was certainly possible. However, the problem that I came against was my actual army itself. Now, army list building had totally changed. Now, one thing that I was able to do with 5th edition, 6th edition, 7th edition was take my army lists, adapt them slightly, and then carry on playing them. However, with 8th edition, that just wasn't the case. The way we build our armies is totally different now. We don't even have the standard force organisation chart of 1 HQ and 2 troops like the old days. Things are very much different. And on top of that, they've introduced command points and stratagems. So now you have to build your list to get as many command points as you can so that you can use the goodies in the stratagems to make your army work. So for me, the biggest change was in how I built my lists. And that not necessarily caused a problem, but it certainly meant a slowdown on learning 8th edition. Indeed, it's been so slow that I've only played one game with my Tyranids, and I haven't even opened my Eldar Codex, which I've had since it came out. I just haven't had the inclination to do it. I've been concentrating on the Necrons, and list building for the Necrons, well, now I'm getting quite competent with that. Now I'm quite happy and settled with that. I feel like I probably am ready to go into a second army, but it's taken me around a year to be able to do that. Now, of course, I haven't had the Necron Codex for that long, so that has had an impact on that learning curve. However, the points that I'm making is the complicated side of the game that we had in 6th and 7th edition. Seems like it's moved from the game itself over into the armies. Now, I think this is probably a good thing, because it means if you want to play more of a basic game without all of those complicated rules, the game is there. You can use power levels if you want to, as opposed to points. so the game is definitely simpler and easy to play if you want it to be. However, in match play, I find the rules are still just as complicated. They've just moved from the game to the actual armies. And of course, this is compounded by FAQs, chapter approved, beta rules, or any other way that GW want to change the rules to try and level the playing field, to try and make what is basically an unbalanced game as balanced as possible. So the actual game of 8th edition is definitely a lot simpler. I look back at 7th edition, and 8th edition is a lot easier to play, even though there are some rather odd rules, like a tank being able to shoot around the corner even though their gun doesn't have line of sight. Some rather odd, non-cinematic things happening on the table, but the actual game itself definitely is a lot simpler. But, like I said, I think the complicated side of the game has been moved into the armies. However, although they are a bit more complicated, they certainly have a lot more flavour. So whilst building an army is definitely more complicated, we certainly have a lot more flavour. Just take the Necron Codex for example. We have 5 dynasties to choose from, each of them making a Necron army work differently. Then you have your stratagems. You've got to build your list around those stratagems. Once you start using those stratagems, again, it can change the way the army works. It can change how a unit works on the table. It means, even though you're playing a Necron player, you don't know what type of army you are going to be facing. The armies can be a lot more flavourable, they can be a lot more varied. I think on the whole this is a great thing. It also makes list building a bit more interesting, a bit more challenging to make a list. That can only be a good thing for the hobby. It also means you will get lots of different armies and army playstyles on the table. So with all that said and done, what do I think of 8th edition? Is it the best edition of 40k yet? Okay, well my answer is yes, it is. I think it is the best edition. I don't think it's the easiest edition. I think it is actually just as complicated as what we've had before. However, I think it's a lot of fun. The game itself is a lot simpler. I think making lists is a lot harder, but also a lot more tactical, which is great for the game. It means it can be as complicated or as basic as you want it to be. You don't have to use stratagems, you don't have to use command points. You can play power levels, you can just use the standard core rules, or you can go all out. And of course we have the campaign section in the main rulebook as well. This has to be the best edition of 40k, and it's backed up by Games Workshop. Now how long Games Workshop will keep 8th edition going, that is the question. Personally, my hope is that 8th edition, in its current format, with all of the updates that they're doing all of the time, it would last quite a long time. I would like to see 8th edition stay around for a very long time. It is slightly concerning that Age of Sigmar has had an update only after 3 years. Warhammer 40k usually gets an update between 2 and 4 years. So what is going to happen with 8th edition? Will it be updated anytime soon, or will it last the distance? I am hoping it will last the distance, especially when you consider that the updates of Age of Sigmar are now incorporating a lot of 8th edition rules in. Now of course, this is just my opinion, and I would love to hear what your opinions are. So, do you like 8th edition? Do you think it's the best edition ever? Do you like stratagems and command points? Do they bring flavour, or do they bring an unnecessary complicated element to the game? And how long do you think 8th edition will stay around? Let me know in the comments box below. Now if you enjoyed this chat, please consider subscribing, hit my icon at the end of the video so you can keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k. Beam me up!